let's hope we get the game going. Looks like we are live. Perfect. So, welcome everyone to this stream. We have the real Yata Format finals going on right now, or very soon at least, between Alfia2 and Paolo NS. So, welcome to the stream. And I have a co-commentator here with me. DK, do you want to introduce yourself for anyone watching at home?
DK0, you probably remember me from yesterday's stream, so I think that's it.
Oh, now your audio is sounding very weird. It's like very quiet and like tinny. I don't know why.
Wait a minute. Is it better now?
No, it's just really strange. Like it was fine right before the call, and then or right before the stream, I mean, but I'm not sure what happened. Investing with Cole says the last finals was fraud. Don't worry, we got the real finals here now. So hope you all enjoy it. But yeah, DK, we can't hear you if you're saying something, unfortunately. That's weird.
Let me see. I'll try to.
Yeah, because it shouldn't have. Nothing should have changed on Discord from me starting the stream on YouTube. So I don't know what the issue was. Jules banned for cheating. He ran 4 Yata. We did see Yata a fair bit in yesterday's semifinals, but it is a powerful card and it's very easily searchable as well. So, yeah, not the craziest thing in the world to see. But we do have the game hosted. Let me just see how things are coming along with Aleph and Paolo here. Sorry about the delay. Okay, looks like Aleph will be there in a second, so we are good to go. We're doing good. This will give us time to work out the audio issues as well.
Right. Like, how about
okay,
now? I tried
perfect.
to switch my setup.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Is better?
Yep, you sound great now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you're the quiet one, but like it's better this way.
Yeah. Anyone in chat, let us know if something sounds weird or something. We can try to adjust it. I hope I'm just quiet on your end and not on the YouTube end. But we'll see what happens. PJ Darkness says, "Yo, Yata's finals hype," and it is indeed hype. It looks like they are getting started now. So let's dive in to the watchers chat here. And yeah, good luck to both duelists involved. PJ says audio sounds fine to me. So hopefully it stays that way. But this is going to be a very exciting match. Alfia2 is on a very, very innovative deck, and Paolo NS is also on a pretty fun deck as well. But, you know, whenever you see Alfia2 in these tournaments, like they always bring the spice, and they always do really, really well. So what are your thoughts on Alfia2's like sort of tournament run here?
Oh, well, it's amazing, of course. You would have to say like Alefia never disappoints, really, right?
Yeah.
And but I would say like let's not spoil the deck.
Yeah, I'm not revealing anything until we actually see it pop up here. Although the thumbnail might give a little bit of a hint if you see the thumbnail.
Okay. I didn't see it.
Okay, but the people watching out there, you know, it's a pretty hype deck, and if you're nostalgic about that card I put on the thumbnail, then I think you'll enjoy watching this video here, this stream, this match. Graceful coming down from Paolo right away. Looks like Alfia2 does not have an IO set first turn. Very, very slow start for Alfia2 here, which is kind of unfortunate, especially if your opponent opens a start that's a bit more explosive, like it seems like Paolo has here. Although maybe it's not too explosive, because we're seeing Jinzo MST pitch and then just 2 back row set pass. So, very interesting play.
That's pretty weird. Yes. Does that mean that Paolo is like playing a low monster count, maybe?
Could be. Could also be they're trying to bait Aleph into Torrential. But that's kind of awkward because there are a lot of monsters that can sort of play around Torrential very well. For instance, if Alethea 2 had like a Gravekeeper spy set there, that would be fine into Torrential. Oh, okay. Call of the Haunted makes a bit of sense. Going for Call on Jinzo, bringing that back. And then chaining Raigeki Break as well. Okay, this play, it makes a bit more sense now. Although, honestly, it's still kind of awkward because I feel like if you had a monster in hand, you'd probably want to commit it turn 1 just to sort of get all of you 2 to use up removal that they might use on the Jinzo instead.
Right.
But all of you 2's thinking here. So they might have something. Although the only thing you can really activate under Jinzo here would be like book. Okay, it looks like main phase 2, going for the Dark Hole, clearing the Jinzo. Call the Haunted will stay on field, I believe.
I believe
actually,
so.
I think it might go to Grave because there's a weird ruling. Yeah, Call. I think it does go to Grave actually because there's a weird ruling where like if Call gets sent to field, sent from field to Grave while Jinzo's up, then Jinzo stays, which makes sense. But if Jinzo's sent from field to Grave while it's equipped with Call, Call will also go. So it's a weird ruling of the time. I don't think it stays that way in future formats, but that's just how it was back in Yata. Elf coming down here, hitting a giant germ. We're getting to see a little bit of the spice reveal itself here. Germ, very interesting monster in this format. Can get in a massive amount of burn if you crash it into your opponent's stuff. Although its attack stat is pretty bad. But if you're playing a burn deck, you don't necessarily care about that as much because you're just trying to get in as much damage as you can. Oh, well, Lily will also help pump in the damage here. Hidden over the Gemini Elf. Aleph will go down a little bit here, but they're getting in for a lot of damage on Paolo here, cutting their life points down to 4,000, and these germs represent 1,000 damage more. So, very tough spot for Paolo to be in. The Lily also threatens a lot of damage, so yeah, it's very tricky. PJ Arts of Darkness says, Germ, baby, germ, and I agree. Long live the germ.
Right. Like, I want to say we probably haven't seen this card since Treasure Format, right?
Yeah. I mean, it showed up in a couple burn lists, I think, like an Imperial maybe, but Imperial isn't really that different from like Treasure. Like it's been a while. A lot of more quote unquote modern burn lists for the formats that I've covered recently have just cut Germ out altogether because they're just better burn cards. But I mean, Alpha 2 is showing here that Germ can be pretty good. It sets up an aggressive pressure if you're able to clear your opponent's stuff and just attack in with 2 germs here. And also, it can be used just for chip damage as well. And now Paolo's forced into a really awkward spot, snap-stealing the Lily just to wall up here. Now this gives Aleph back life points and enables them to make more plays later on because now if Paolo does have a big monster on field, they can just keep crashing the germs in. Oh, and Harpies will probably be the end of the game here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is just that's it. Gonna scoop it up there.
And we didn't even get to see most of the spice. Like there's so much more.
Yeah, all we saw were the germs, but you know, germs can be very powerful. How far in the chat they played in the tournament as well? They say I lost round 1 to Alephia due to 1,000 giant germ burns where he crashed into my Gemini Elf. And yep, that's how it goes sometimes. DNA also said Waboku baby, and maybe after seeing this deck in action, something like Waboku will come back into play in the side. Tough to say at this point. I will be releasing sort of a meta breakdown of the topping decks of the format and how I think they'll affect the Yata metagame overall once the sort of coverage is out for it. So ideally, if the coverage is up tonight, I'll be releasing that video tonight. So look forward to that. But I think that this really does sort of force people to pack things into their side deck that they might not have otherwise prepared for. So yeah, but again, as DK said, we haven't seen everything from Alpha 2 yet.
No, like I'd be interested how Paolo is going to side now.
Yeah.
We talked just this morning and he said like he's thinking about it. Yeah,
because
Yeah.
In the lead up to this, both players get to see what the other player's on. They get to watch like the replays of the matches that previously happened in the tournament. So Paolo knew going into this that Alpha 2 was on
So
sort
you
of
have some
the germ
idea
strat.
about the opponent's list, but you don't know the side deck, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's a bit tricky. Duo coming down though. That will start to chip away at Alpha 2's card advantage here. But I
Right.
mean, hitting
Oh,
fiber is really really good in this matchup.
yeah.
As if your opponent gets you down to a lower life point total and then just sets fiber to reset the whole board,
Mm.
that can be pretty rough for you. So very good hit off duo. Paolo is 1,000 down at an early stage, but I mean, hitting fiber jar might have been worth it.
It's totally worth it at this point, and you hit the giant germ too.
Yeah.
It's
Although
really good.
Altitude pitched that themselves, so maybe they've got another germ in hand potentially. Maybe they've got tomato to fetch out a germ if they want it. Unclear about that. PJ Arch of Dark. Oh, and Mirage to grab more cards from deck here. Very, very good. PJ Arch of Darkness says also helps that cards like Duo, Comfy, as well as Lily sometimes can help the burn player. And I think that's why burn is potentially a meta call here. Because, there are many sort of aspects of this metagame that do help out the burn player quite a bit.
Right. I want to say, like, is this even a burn deck, or is this called aggro bomb? I believe that's like an older terminology. Maybe someone in chat can enlighten us.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky because Alpha 2's deck sort of defies typical classification um, in Yata format at least. And I'm very curious to
Right.
hear their thoughts on what they want to call it after the match is over if they join the stream. Um,
Yes.
because, sort of thinking about what to call it, like, I think Aggro Bomb is a good name for it because there are actually some, like, components of more aggressive cards that we'll see hopefully later on in the match
Right.
that can be very strong. But okay, it looks like there was another germ in hand, so that explains the previous germ pitch here.
Like, I was just gonna say, like, Alefia's secret to this tournament run is never open to germs.
Yeah, and here we have open two germs, but probably the best scenario to open two germs is
Right.
into your opponent's duo. Um,
Right.
and Paolo taking the germ, that is very interesting. Maybe implies
Oh,
that they have Imperial Order already. Because if you think about it, like Change of
yeah.
Heart can likely do more damage to you than a germ would on average, especially if one of the germs is already gone. And especially if you've got
Right.
Wang Hu. I mean, Wang Hu had to be the draw there, right?
Right. That
'Cause-
doesn't really make sense, but we'll see.
yeah. Knock coming down on a spy. So very, very good for Paolo
Mm.
here. And this is, I mean, we had a quick game one. Looks like this might be a quick game two. Although you never know in this format. There are a lot of very powerful cards that can swing the course of the game around. All you two thinking
Mm.
here. Maybe Mirror
It's
Force?
interesting that Alefia only has double spy apparently in his list.
Yeah, it's kind of neat because like, and this is something that like, it's a bit tricky for a lot of Yata decks because when you compare it to a format like Goat, there's been a lot more optimization in Goat. So when people play things like
Mm.
Spy, they've had the time to really test it out and be like, yeah, actually, we want just 3 spies in these decks because Spy is such a powerful card, even though it may not seem that way at first. But in Yata format, like, I'm not trying to say that these decks are unoptimized because they're clearly very, very good to get both players to this point. But it is kind of a bit trickier because like it's still a newer format, so people have played it less. Maybe 3 spies the answer. Maybe 2 is just fine if you've got so many power cards. But this is still an open question in the format, especially in a sort of off meta deck like Alpha 2 has here.
Mm. And we see another piece of the spice engine.
Now we do Nightmare Wheel. Very, very strong
Right.
card. It does die to like MST, and people are playing 3 MST in this format.
Right.
But if you can stop an attack, get that burn damage going for a bit, that can be very, very powerful. And also, this card doesn't just stop attacks. You can also do things like stop your opponent from flipping up a set monster if you're afraid that they've got something like
Right.
Magician of Faith or something. Oh, Raigeki coming down here, hitting a Sangan. Uh, I'm
Best
not
case scenario.
yeah, I'm not quite sure what Paolo's afraid of here because I think we knew that the set
Right.
couldn't be a spy because they'd have to have the spy already in hand, but the card in hand was just change. I guess,
Right, and it could be a fiber jar, and now Alevier has a Spirit Reaper in his hand,
yeah.
which might stall for even longer.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was the Spirit Reaper, but I think honestly, like, you're okay just attacking into the set Spirit Reaper and then
Yeah,
Raigeking it
sure,
later, right?
definitely.
So maybe a bit of a misplay there. Although it's hard to
I
tell
would say,
given what Paolo might have in their hand.
right, let's see. So Nightmare Wheel is very interesting because game one we saw Alevier being very aggressive
Mm.
in the way he played, and now he has like a stall card, a real stall card. Two even. I mean, Spirit Reaper is also a stall card.
Yeah. And if they can wait out Paolo here, Paolo dropping down by 500 a turn, that's a 10-turn clock. Paolo will probably draw an answer within that time, especially given that they're playing Raigeki breaks.
Right.
But Alpha 2 is also drawing cards and likely drawing burn cards as well. So, this
Right.
might not be as easy match for Paolo as it may seem.
Like it's honestly kind of nice that this duel is a little bit more deaccelerated, right?
Yeah, it gives us time to talk about it.
So,
But
exactly. Like I wanted to add, like Nightmare Wheel is one of those cards that is like an MST magnet,
mm,
right?
yeah, and that's part of the difficulty in running a card like this is that everyone is on triple MST. So like,
Right. But
oh
you could also
wow.
look at it from the other point of view and say, well, that's one MST that does not hit your Mirage or your Imperial Order, so maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, and if you just play enough MST magnets, then maybe that's a good thing. Yata though,
Ooh,
very very good here. Oh well, this likely
ooh,
will be the end of the game unless that set is the change of heart from earlier. Yeah,
no,
Reborn would have helped if that had been in hand, but this will indeed be the end of the game. Nothing change of heart can do against a Yata. So very very intense game there. But Paolo was able to pull it out there.
too bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm excited for game three. I'm very curious to see how the two players will
Right.
sort of continue to side back and forth because all of you two kind of has the advantage in siding, given that like they're playing the deck that people are not expecting in game one. So then games 2 and 3, they can sort of craft their response to what Paolo might do. And so it sort of gives them a little bit of an edge because they can also fit more things in their side deck to sort of counter the counters, right, that Paolo might bring in. Um, so I am very curious to see how this will actually go. And if we'll actually be able to
And,
see the monster that I put on the thumbnail doing its job because,
oh,
I'll just reveal it for people who, didn't remember the thumbnail or something. But I put Spear Dragon on the thumbnail because Spear Dragon actually is also in Alpha 2's deck. They played it a couple times. And it's
right.
a very cool card. So not sure if they're still on it in game 3, but it's a way to get over Wangham, I guess.
And like Spear Dragon is another of these, like it's not a burn card, but it's a bomb card. So like you
Mm,
just try to go very aggressive and just cause a lot of damage within the shortest amount of time, a single turn, 2 turns. And then you have like these cards like Nightmare Wheel that can just stall it out.
yeah, and it's very
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 interesting.
cool to see this sort of
Like,
innovation happen like that
yeah.
because
Like honestly, you know what that reminds me about?
mhm,
I want to say stall burn in Yugi Kaiba, right?
yeah, that's a very very good point. Like in Yugi Kaiba, stall burn is a strategy you can do just playing defenders with the burn spells, but the way that sort of people pivoted in playing burn is to go for a more
Right.
aggressive list. Playing like Logins, just trying to beat in, deal a lot of damage, prevent your opponent from really knowing when the best spot to Wuboku is, and then just go for a lot of burn spells at the end of the game to kill them. Um,
I mean, I want to say, like, even in the Yugi Kaiba list, like, you can't even win with your burn spells because they don't do enough damage at that point in Yu-Gi-Oh history. And
well,
so, like, you have to go aggressive to some kind of degree. And I mean, you have Dark Hole, you have Raigeki, you have Change of Heart.
yeah, and
Right,
so you have so much destruction potential, and then you just once you whittle them down past a certain point, the burn spells aren't the most powerful. So you're right; they can't kill the opponent outright. But once you get them below a certain threshold, they can do a lot of damage.
Exactly.
So it's really cool to see that sort of design philosophy here as well, because I feel like a lot of the burn decks, like at least when I experimented with them in this format, my sort of reasoning for the burn decks was like, oh, they're a bit stallier, less aggressive. But I'll have you to bring in a different mindset to it and really showing that, there are many different ways to play a given strategy. And, with that experimentation, some of them might work out in ways that you didn't expect. But very good opening turn here. Now we know pretty much Paolo's opening hand, Serpent, Storm, MST, Raigeki. So a lot of destruction. Taking away the tomato takes away offensive pressure, which I think is pretty good for Aleph. So it makes sense why they took that. And now Paolo has to sort of navigate this. Like, do they pop the back row, given that, they know about the spell and trap removal? Do they fire Raigeki? And it seems like they are firing Raigeki, given that Aleph knew about Raigeki, It's sort of those mind games there. Aleph is thinking about this, and they are just going to go for the IO. That will bait out the MST there that they did know about, and they will lose the Spy. So, and Yata coming down as well. That's the top deck. Very, very good top deck. If Aleph doesn't have a way to deal with this, then that might be the end of the game. Yeah,
that could be super rough.
Yeah. And Aleph knows about the heavy storm in hand, so they can play around that a bit too. But Paolo's also drawing more cards here as the Yata hits in. So very, very tricky game state. And
I was just going to say, seeing the Imperial Order countered by Mystical Space Typhoon, maybe we see another grind game, but like both parties are they're putting it on the line.
Yeah. And Lily coming down here, that's accelerating the pace of the game quite a bit. If Paolo doesn't have a way to deal with that, then, and it looks like they probably don't. So,
oh my god, that might be the Yata that he just said. Like,
yeah, I think it's probably the Serpent if it's a monster.
oh, he had Serpent.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But Yata would be very funny. I mean, if Nock comes down here and clears the Serpent, then you might have to set Yata. But duo here. This is really good because it gives. Okay, it looks like the heavy was in hand, so Aleph doesn't know information about the set. But if Paolo tried to like pro set the heavy, then Aleph would get information about the back row as well as the cards discard from hand. So very, very good there. They do know that the set is Serpent now, and they are going to commit into this. Okay. I mean, I think it's fair to commit into this because if it was like TT or something, at least Yata isn't around just to sort of punish you for this.
Right.
But now Aleph has to think, do I play into Mirror Force?
Right.
Looks like the answer is yes. And choosing not to go for the 2k attack boost on the Lily here, biding their time a little bit. I think this, I don't know how I feel about this.
Right.
I don't know. It's a very weird game state because if you got in for the Lily instead, then Paolo would be at 1200. Aleph would be at 2800. So it's a little bit risky, but like if they draw Lily of their own or take control of the Lily there, then it's not the worst thing in the world for you. So it might have been worth it. I don't know. Aleph's more experienced with the deck, so I assume that they're probably keeping in mind things that I'm not keeping in mind here. But
right.
Oh, Jinzo coming down. Yeah, that probably will be the end of the game.
Probably, yeah.
Yep, that is the end of the game. Raigeki break set there. They could have, I guess, just shotgunned the Raigeki break on one of the monsters, but honestly, probably wouldn't have helped that much because there'd still be one monster left over. You can summon out Jinzo over that and get him for 2400, which is pretty rough. But yeah, very, very good game there. Very, very tricky game as well. And Paolo says in chat, game one I could have played better. But against a burn deck, it's very, very tricky to actually figure out what to do. And I do think that game 3 was like I think both players played game 3 as well as they could here.
Right. I mean, Alefia had like the heart of the cards on his side. I mean, he opened Forceful, he had Duo.
Yeah. So I mean,
That's a pretty good start.
yeah, if you
Right.
draw that, then I mean, it's pretty much over. But also, like,
Pretty tough.
Paolo did
Right.
fight back here. Paolo got the Yata lock online for a little bit. If Aleph Yatu had not had a way to deal with that, then this would have gone to Paolo here. So, yeah,
Exactly.
very tricky. Yeah, it looks like Paolo's saying I didn't need to summon Jinzo. I think that's fair. I think that's probably maybe the point that I'd point to where it's like, you know, if there was something in game 1 that could have turned that game differently, then maybe going for the Jinzo would have been that. But I mean, also you want to keep off damage for yourself and get in damage as well. Stop things like Lily from being as effective, but yeah, it's tricky. But either way, if any of the duelists playing here want to dive in to the stream, we'd be happy to have them because yeah, this was an awesome match, and these duels both did very, very well this tournament, and it would be awesome to hear their thoughts on this overall. Especially given like Raigeki Break is kind of an interesting like main deck tech. Like not as many people have been playing that. So it's cool seeing it in the main deck for Paolo here. And of course this aggro bomb berm list. I mean it is so cool. But yeah, great stuff from both duels involved. And I'm very excited to cover the sort of meta shifts for this format with the tournament report when the coverage goes up.
Paolo is saying like he reverse engineered Alefia's deck, and like he actually told me this morning like there was one card choice he was not sure about, whether Alefia is playing a third MST or Duo. And like I must admit I kind of knew that he was not playing Duo main because I've seen him do that before in Goat Format.
Yeah, and I think in this format,
And
like
he just said like the third MST is just too important with Mirage and IO, right?
yeah, and Duo's kind of the least overwhelming of the power cards in my opinion. Like especially given like Serpents in the format, so many ways to search this Serpents in the format, and like Duo is random, doesn't give you information about the hand, so yeah, it's a bit tricky here. But hopefully we can get all of you two in the call and just hear their decisions with this deck and
Right.
hear their sort of reasoning behind it.
Right, Alefia said like he's going to join in 1 second,
Okay,
apparently.
sounds good. Yeah,
So,
oh, there's the Spear Dragon in the hand in game 1. I just pulled up the
oh,
replay, and so we do get to see a bit of Spear Dragon, a little teensy bit. So the thumbnail isn't a lie. We saw the Spear Dragon, so there you go.
but actually, like there was another spicy burn card that we didn't see at all, right? That's Princess of Tsurugi.
Yeah, which is very good against certain back row decks. Was that Alafia 2 joining the call that I heard?
Hello.
Hello, congratulations on your success here. Very, very cool deck.
Thank you, thank you. Honestly, this one I can't really believe myself that I won it, but yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. So, what were your thoughts on building this deck, and like your main philosophy for it? Like, was it a meta pick, or did you just have the idea and want to do something fun?
Yeah, it was a mix. I think I actually saw a video of yours. I'm not fully sure if it was Yata Format or Fiber or something in that regard, but you also played a burn deck. And yeah, somehow I felt that Nightmare Wheels looked pretty good there and the whole burn philosophy. And then I also thought about Panda Burn from Code Format. And I somehow tried to mimic some of the playing styles for Yata Format. So try to transform this aggro philosophy with a bit of burn cards backed up into Yata Format. But I have to say I didn't try my list at all. I just built it from scratch, like in theory, and I immediately saw some main deck cards that, felt really off. So
Which
the main deck is not that great. I wouldn't advise people to copy it for future tournaments.
so which main deck cards were particularly disappointing, and which ones potentially overperformed for you?
Yeah, so the Nightmare Wheels were pretty decent, I'd say, because they are surprisingly hard to get rid of. If my opponent amnesties them, I don't really care because it's a 1-for-1 trade. Sometimes I have gotten some stall and burn value. Yeah, what I didn't like, I main decked one Princess of Surrogy for the burn stuff, but it's too defense. It doesn't have any defensive capabilities, to be honest, and it just feels really weird setting it. It's great when your opponent sets everything down for Mirage plays, but otherwise it often just gets run over by Tomato or something like that for 500 to 1000 damage. So that's not great. The main deck Morphing Jar I played, I wouldn't play that again. It's just not the format for it somehow, because opponents also often, play their stuff early out, set a lot of things, play little monsters, and unfortunately I have to say Spear Dragons were also a bit of an underperformer. It's the problem is everyone playing Sanguine Witch and Three Tomatoes basically, and Spear Dragon. You often have it in hand and think like, damn, I can't really attack anything because it gets run over. The Spear Dragon does a bit of damage and gets run over for -1 next turn. So that's were the underperformers for sure.
So if you had to replace any of these cards with other things, like for instance, Spear Dragon, for Spear Dragon especially, would you go with like something like Gemini Elf instead, or would you potentially go with something like Gravekeepers Spear Soldier, which also does piercing? Like, do you have any thoughts on things
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, those are both not bad ideas. I think I would main just Gemini elves, because I was often in spots where I thought, damn, if Spear Dragon wouldn't go to death now, it would be much better. So elf would have been decent. And yes, the Spear Soldier I should have definitely put in the side, I think, because against opponents who play scapegoats, the Spear Soldier would have been great. Could have also mained actually, but I also didn't have the spice in the main. They were also side.
Do you think they belong in the main in future versions of this deck?
Yeah, that actually they could, like, when I take out Princess of Surrogy and Morphing Jar, this could easily be the two Gravekeeper spies for sure.
Yeah, it seemed like they, were pretty good for you over the course of the tournament. Although in this finals match, they didn't really do much, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have to be honest. What I did basically after already in the first match, probably, but definitely from match 2 on, I had the second. My screensaver went on. I had a pretty linear side approach, because I realized very quickly in the first games that some of the main cards were much worse than I expected on paper, like the ones I told you. And I did often, as you can see from the replays, like did a whole switcheroo with the siding. I took out almost all burn cards, like Cylinder, Ceasefire, Wheels. Sometimes I left one in, but took out Surrogy, MJ, and everything. And I brought in Reaper, Zombia, Spies, Jinzo, Snatch Steal, Torrential, and Delinquent Duo. So I went into a rather normal controlish deck for game 2 and 3, because my post side deck was pretty good, I'd say, but the main one had definitely weaknesses.
Yeah. But do you think the smokescreen could work the other way potentially as well? Like going from a more controlling deck into a burn strategy for game 2 potentially? Probably not 3, because then your opponent sees what's up, but you think that could...
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I sometimes also had this idea and made some mix approach for game 3, where I also brought in some burn stuff, and I felt that it could be okay, but I didn't do the whole switching back, I think. because I felt much more comfortable. I really like the format and I like the playing flow, and I just felt like I wanted to play as good as I can the game 2 and 3, and like have the normal deck to just play good and win that way, and not like get too lucky with some lucky burn runouts.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And like, you definitely are like an expert in this format, because this is your third Yata tournament that you've topped with an off meta sort of deck. Uh,
Yeah,
so
it's even much more fun. I played. Don't quote me on it, but I think I only ever played 3 Yata tournaments and I won all 3
yeah,
actually.
that's a pretty good
That's
track record.
I have to be honest that I think that's the most insane thing I've ever done retro Yugi wise. Like winning one big major tournament in Gold is cool, but winning 3 out of 3 smaller tournaments, that's statistically almost impossible, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think it shows that like you're one of the best Yata players, if not the best Yata player out there right now. So, do you have any tips for anyone sort of trying to get into Yata format? Maybe they see these videos and they're like, "Oh, that seems kind of fun." Do you have any tips for them, like just either general gameplay wise or like what strategies they might want to pick up, especially if they're coming from something like Goat, which is I assume there's a Goat to Yata pipeline sort of, given that the formats are somewhat similar and in the same sort of sphere. So, do you have any tips for people?
Yeah, there's definitely some similarities, as you said. Yata is quite a bit slower. Normally, there are, of course, very sacky fast games, but usually Yata formats go back and forth quite a bit more, I'd say. And somehow the power cards, because here are so many power cards, they don't even feel that overpowered. It's hard to explain, but sometimes everything balances out into an equal game state, even if one player had quite a few more power cards. But yeah, some general tips. I think lots of decks, if they are built correctly, are very even from a power level here, which I somehow improved a bit as well with
Yeah.
my rogue successes. Um, I think there's not really a super tier 0 deck because the card pool is rather small and lots of decks contain lots of similar cards, like even more than it's in Gold, I'd say. So it's a very fair and balanced format somehow, in my opinion.
So if you had to pick what you think is like the best deck in the format, like whether it be one that you've played or maybe one that you've played against and are like, man, that deck is really tough. Which deck would you potentially pick? I know it's a very tough question, because I'm not sure how I'd answer it either. But
Mm.
there's no sort of wrong
It's really a
answers.
good question. Um, it's either one of those usual good stuff decks with tomatoes, elves, and so on. But I think there are lots of tech choices that really define how good the deck is. But I haven't really tested it, so I can't fully say it. But for example, I think Spy is a good card. One Reaper is good. Maybe One Faith also is also good there. Because playing against those is always really annoying. I also think that warriors with some types of gear freeds are pretty good because those are the decks I really struggled against playing this tournament. Even gear freed alone is much more annoying than one would expect to face.
Yeah, because I mean, Blast with Chain as just chainable removal is really good, and also Gear Freed's resilient to Snatch Steal, so very cool to see.
Yeah, 100%. I at least had one game, maybe even two, where my opponent had gear freed and I had a snatch in hand, and I think one I lost and the other one I almost lost just because of the snatch gear freed synergy. It's much more annoying than one would expect. And I think the amount of played Gemini elves is also generally a bit lower than it used to be, so gear freed doesn't that easily get run over.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see, because I feel like Yata is sort of constantly in a state of flux. Like the meta's always changing, especially after these tournaments. Because I feel like last tournament not as many people were like maining Nobleman, because flip decks hadn't really done that well up to that point. But then you come in playing like Spy, playing Spear Soldier, etc. And Nock is really good against Spy, so people start siding in a bit more Nock. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Yata is still very much unsolved, even if it even can be solved. So I'm very curious to see how the meta develops from here and how your deck sort of influences more people in the future. Maybe Burn will become sort of a tier 1 deck. And yeah, I'm excited to
I
see.
think, yeah, I also think that for some like mid-range burn stuff, like similar to what I played, I think it is a pretty decent deck. But definitely, my deck is absolutely not perfect. As I said, there are like at least one Spear Dragon has to go. The Cerugi and the MJ weren't good. But if you replace those with Spy and there's some other offensive, more good stuff, I think there's some decent deck there for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to sort of look at the deck list myself and see all the other decks that made it far in this tournament, and to sort of like give my thoughts about where it's going in the future when I actually have the coverage in front of me. And I'm curious to see where this format's going to go in the future. If anyone out there is watching this stream, wants to try out the format for themselves, the YGO from Zero Discord as well as Format Library are both two great places to sort of play it for yourself. And I highly encourage anyone out there who's been intrigued by this just to try it out, because this format is extremely, extremely fun. And there's still a lot of exploration to be done here. So yeah, I hope that everyone out there tries it out. And with that, I'm probably going to end the stream soon. Aleph, do you have any sort of final thoughts about this format, these games, anything that you want to say to the people out there before I finish things off?
I think your last words were pretty good. I also just want to add that I'm always grateful for Jazz and Format Library for hosting those tournaments. I really like playing them. Also, the multi-day style is really, really nice for me. And also, yeah, thanks to you, of course, for like, for broadcasting it, for increasing the reach. Yeah, I'm definitely down to play in the next ones as well.
Yeah, hopefully it's relatively soon. I think that this format's getting a bit more popular, and so I hope that more people try it out, and hopefully more tournaments get held. So yeah, thanks again to Jazz and people over at Format Library to hosting this, as you said. And yeah, I think I'm gonna call the stream here. But thank you all for watching. And again, go out, play Yata Format. It's really, really fun. You won't be sorry that you did. But I hope that you all enjoyed as always, and I'll see you next time. So have a good one.